Hi guys, this is David from Java Made Easy. We're going to be working on the queue this time, the data structure. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. I really don't have any people watching my videos, but anyway, we're just going to keep on going. You never know. We might have some people later on joining. So let's see. What I have right now is just a main application that has just the main method. Let me just put some music in here. Okay, so we have the main application. Let me move the microphone right there. There we go. Okay, so this is just the main application. I just did a test. And we're going to be creating a queue class. Now, the last time we were working on the stack data structure, and that one is the last in, first out, but a queue is first in, first out. We actually use the queue. It's kind of like a developer tool. When you use the keyboard, you're pressing keys on the keyboard, like it goes into a queue, and then it actually writes or types like all the letters, that when you're using like Microsoft Word or something like that. Well, when you try to print a document, like it's gonna be the same thing. The job goes into the queue. Let's say that you want to print something else. The second job goes into the queue, but the one that is going to print out, like it's going to be the first job that you sent. So it's basically first in FIFO, first out. Okay, so I'm just going to create the Java class, and we're going to start creating a queue. So let me get the mouse in here. I guess I wasn't ready for this. New Java class, and let's call this one just queue. Now we need to create the queue class, so basically from scratch. So the first thing that we're gonna need some private variables that are just gonna be like accessible in the class. So the first thing that we are gonna be using an array for the queue. So let's do queue array private. It's going to be a long array. So let's make long array, and it's going to be a queue array. The second thing that we need a size for the array. So let's create a int, private int. It's going to be max size. Okay, now we're going to need two pointers. These pointers will be pointing the items that we add into the queue and the items that we remove. I will explain why. So let me just create those two. Int, it's gonna be, one is gonna be called rear, and the other one is gonna be called front. Oops, front. And we need to keep the size of the array. So we need a variable for the size of the array. Oops, no, yeah, no, we already have the max size. Okay, we're missing something. Queue array max size, the number of items. Okay, yeah, that's what we need. Private int number of items. There we go. Okay, now let me just create a constructor. It's gonna be a public constructor, and you can type queue. Now this one is gonna take a size. So when we create the queue, we are gonna send the size of the queue that we want. So I'm sending a size in here, and then we're gonna assign this size variable that we're gonna be sending in the constructor to the max size variable. Okay, then we're going to be creating the arrays. So we're going to be creating the array, and this is going to be a long array. and the size it's gonna be the max size. Okay, now we're gonna be assigning rear a value. So rear, it's gonna be kind of like if you guys saw the stack video, it's gonna have also like the same value. It's gonna be -1. Okay, front is gonna equal 0. I'll explain why. Number of items is also gonna be 0. Okay. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is insert an item into the array queue, but it's an array queue array, whatever. Okay, so we're gonna create some public methods. They gotta be public so we can get access to the methods. We made the variables private because we don't want anybody changing these values from outside this class. So we're creating a public method to get access to these variables and change them or do anything that you want to do. So we have a private array and we want to insert a value. Okay, so we want to insert a long value, so it's going to be public long. It's going to be insert. It's going to take a long. Let's call this one value. There we go. So the first thing that we want to do, we have this one. We'll implement that one. Okay. We're going to have also a public, and this one is going to return a long. This one doesn't need to return a long, so this one is going to be void. Okay, public long, and we're going to go remove. And that one is going to remove the first item in the queue. Now, before we implement this, let me explain how the queue is supposed to work. Okay, let's suppose that this is an array. Okay, I'm just gonna add 5 items. Okay, this is index 0. This is gonna be index 1 in the array, and then we have index 2, 3, and 4. Okay, now let's say that I'm gonna add a item into index 1 of this array. So one person comes into the queue and is waiting in line. Then a second person comes into the queue and is waiting in line. Then we have a third person, and then we have a fourth person, and then we have a fifth person, okay, in the line waiting. Now, once we remove a person, once we're ready to take care of this person is going to be removed from the queue, okay? Now, if we actually move all these items down in here, let's say that I'm going to move down number 2 in here, and then number 3 move it into this position, then number 4 into the third position, and 5th into the 4th position, and so on. That's gonna take a long time. Just imagine if we have a big queue with thousands of items. Okay, so we don't want to do that. That's just like a waste of time. So that's why we have these 2 pointers. We have a rear pointer and we have a front pointer. So let's implement first of all the rear, okay, which is going to be to insert an item in here. So I'm going to do this, okay. First I'm going to create the code and then we will explain it. If the rear equals max size -1, this is what I call like wraparound. Then rear it's gonna equal -1. Okay, we'll explain. Then of course we need to insert the item into the array. So that's gonna be the queue array. And the first thing that we want to do, the value of rear, the variable, is -1. So first we need to increment that value, and then we can insert a item into the array, as we cannot insert an item into -1. So first of all, rear is going to become index 0 right here, and then we're going to assign the value into that array. And let's not forget, now we have one item, so we're going to increment the number of items. Now, why are we doing this wraparound? Because as I said before, once we insert an item in here, rear, to insert the item, rear has to be incremented by 1, as we can see in here. It's incremented by 1, so the value of rear, it's going to be 0. Okay, once we insert another item, then the value of rear, it's going to be 2 in here. Okay, let me just copy this thing, copy. Okay, so once we insert a value here, then rear, it's going to be right there, and so on, all the way to the end. So once we insert this value in here and this value in here, we know that the value of rear, it's going to be there. Okay, so the value of rear was incremented by 1 before we added the item, so it became index 0, then it became index 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the value of rear of that variable is 4 right now. And as we said, that once we delete an item in here, we're not moving these items down, as it would be like a waste of time. So we're going to be moving the pointer variables, the rear variable and the front variable. So it's going to wrap around like in a circle. So that's why we have the, let me try to move this a little bit up, or maybe increase the size of the screen. Okay, so we're not going to be moving those items down. So we're going to be moving the pointer. So that's why we have this section in here. So let's say that we remove an item. So an item is gone. Okay, now we need to add another item. We know that the value of rear, it became 4 as we were increasing that one. And let's say that we want to add a 6 item. Okay, so we get into this method, and first of all we check what's the size of rear. Rear, its value is 4. The size of this array is 5. Okay, 5 items, but rear is 4, so that's the max size. So if rear equals the max size minus 1, then rear is going to be what? -1. Okay, so we want to add another item, and the value of rear just became -1. Okay, now we wanted to add a 6 item into this section, so we go into the array, and the value of rear is -1. So first we do the pre-increment, no post increment. Pre-increment, that's going to bring rear once again to index 0, and this item will be added into the very beginning of the array. It's kind of like a circle. Okay, so let me go back in here. Okay, let me implement the other method, and we can check that one in a sec. Okay, so this one, I need to create a temp variable, so it's going to be long tmp, and this one is going to equal the Q array. So we need to remove one item. Okay, we know that front starts at 0, so we're just gonna go with front in here. So that's gonna give us the index 0 item, and it's gonna put it into the temp variable. Okay, and after that, this is the post increment we're gonna increment front. Okay, so once we remove an item, front is right here. Okay, this is front. Front value is 0 in the beginning. So we remove number 1. Okay, we return the number 1 into the temp variable. We put that 1 into the temp variable, and then we're increasing front. So this one goes into the temp variable, and the value of front now it's gonna be right here, front. Okay, so that's gonna be the value of front. So it went from 0 to 1. Okay, so it removed this item and it went all the way here. Okay, now let's keep on working on this one. Okay, now we're gonna do the wraparound for this one. If front equals max size, then we're gonna wrap around once again. Front's value it's gonna equal once again 0. Okay, now why 1 is minus 1 and the other one it doesn't have that, it's just max size. Okay, that's because these two variables start with different values and they're incremented in a different way. So we knew that we removed, as I explained for the rear, once you get to the very top, we knew that the value of rear was a max value minus 1 as we started index 0. So rear starts in index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, front. Once you remove an item, the value of front was already 0. But once we removed one item, its value went to 1. Okay, so it went to index 1 with the value of 1. Now, once we remove this item in here, the value of front, it's gonna be 2. Okay, it's gonna be right there. Once we remove this item, right here, value of front, here, it's gonna be put the paste front, oops, right there. It's gonna be 3. Once you remove this item, front is gonna be here. Oops, here, and it's gonna be 4. Okay, but look what happens. Let's say that we go for one more item. We need to remove this item. Okay, so the value of front is 4. Now we need to remove this item. We remove this item, and the value of front goes to what? 5. Okay, so we remove the last item in the array, and the value of front went actually to 5. Okay, and what happens when the value of front becomes 5? Okay, so we remove the last item, it went into the Q array, and front, its value was 4, then it became 5, and then we check if front equals the max size. So the max size of this array is 5. Okay, 0 to 4, it's going to be 5 items. So that's why the difference between the max size minus 1 and the front, that it's only max size, as front moves in a different way. So once it is in the last position, it's going to have the indexed value, the last index value, but then once you remove that item, it's going to be incremented by 1, and that's going to equal the max size, and that's when we know that the value of front equals 0. So we remove the last item, and the value of front went from 0, which is the size of the array, to, once again, 0. Okay, now let's say we need to add one more item into the array. You know, uh, sorry, let's say that we need to remove that we inserted one more item into the array, let's say 6, and then we need to remove that one. Then the value front is going to be 0 to remove this item right there. Okay. Okay, well, let's hope that was a little bit clear, but let's implement the other methods. Okay, now this one we need to return the value of, well, first uh, we need to decrement the number of items. So number of items minus minus, and then we need to return the TMP variable. So we're returning this value in there. Okay, now let me increment the increment. Man, too much decrementing and incrementing. Okay, so now we're just gonna create the is empty and is full. Okay, public. It's gonna be boolean. Now let's do is empty, empty, and it's gonna return a boolean. So return. Okay, return number of items equals 0. Okay, now let's do the public boolean. Okay, is full, and this one is also gonna return a boolean return. It's gonna be number of items equals max size. There we go, and there's one more. It's gonna be the size. So let's go public. It's gonna be an int size. So we want to know the size of the queue, and it's gonna return. It's just going to return the size. So no return number of items. There we go. Okay, now we just created our queue class. Let me just go one more time just to recap. Okay, so a queue, it's kind of like a line when you go to the movie theater or something. You know, the first person that gets into line, that's the person to go into the movie theater. So let's say that one person gets in line and is ready to go to the movie theater, then another person gets in there, then another person gets in there, and it just creates a line. So that's a queue. So we're creating a queue. And also we also have two different types of once this person went into this position, rear was incremented to 0. Okay, so let me just do it from the very beginning. See if we're clear about this. Okay, there's one person that goes into the movie theater. The value of rear is -1, but we know that in the insert, before we insert, we use the increment operator in there. So -1 is going to become 0, and then the first item is going to be inserted in index 0. Okay, now there's another person that gets into line. We know that rear, let's see, rear, it's gonna be incremented by 1, and the value of rear, it's gonna be right here. But then we have another person that gets into line, and the value of rear is gonna be there. But we have another person getting into line, and the value of rear, it's gonna be right here. Okay, and we have a fifth person joining the line, so the value of rear, it's gonna be right there. Okay, let me remove these ones. So rear got to the very end. Okay, now we know that the value of front is 0, so front is gonna be right here. Front. Okay, now let's say that the value of front is 0, and we're just gonna remove one item. Once we remove an item, what happens to the value of front? the value of front is incremented by 1, um, um, and it's going to be a post increment, so after. So first of all, the first item that we removed right here goes into the temp variable, and then front is incremented by 1. Okay, both of them are going to wrap around. Now let's say that I need to add one more item. Okay, so once I try to add one more item, what happens? Insert is right here. Okay, first we are gonna check if the value of rear is the size of the array -1, which it is, and then rear it's gonna become once again -1. So rear it's gonna become -1, but we do the pre-increment operator, so it's going to be 0, and then the other person, it's going to be in index 0 right there. So the value of rear, it's going to be 0 right there. Now let's say that we removed another person. Okay, so this person is gone. What happens when we remove a person? The value of front gets incremented. So front is gonna be right there, right here. Okay, so let's say that we remove this person right here. The value of front is gonna be right here, and then we remove also this item. The value of front is going to be right there. Okay, so the value of front at this point is 4. Okay, now if we remove the 5th item, which is the last one, what happens? So remove that one. The value of front is 4. Okay, so once we remove that item right here, front is going to be incremented to 5. Okay, so we remove the last item in the array. Its value it was 4, but now the Q array index 4 is going to go into the temp variable, but the value of front is going to be incremented to 5. Okay, which is the size of the array. And when that happens, oops, what did I do? Okay, so once that happens, its value it's gonna go to 0 because front equals the size of the array. So its value it's gonna be 0. So front it's gonna be 0. Okay. Now if we try to add, if we try to remove the last item, the value of front is 0. So what's gonna happen? This number will be gone. Okay, and then front will be incremented by 1 once again, and we have actually removed all the items in the queue. So once again, we don't want to move the items in the queue and bring them down into the array. So if we have 1, oops, man, 1 and 2 and 3, we don't want to bring these items down, because if we remove 1 and I try to put number 2 in here and then bring down number 3 into the next one, just imagine if we have thousands of items, all the work that we would have to do, that will be very inefficient. Okay, so we don't bring them down, we use these two pointers. I hope I was able to explain this properly, and that's the way that we implement a queue. Now, of course, there's many different queues, like a priority queue, a D queue, which is a queue that has kind of like 2 beginnings and 2 ends, and so many different ones. But this is a way for you to know how a queue actually works and how to implement one from scratch. Okay, now let's test it. So we're just gonna go into our queue app, We're just going to create a class of type view, of type Q. So it's going to be Q equals new Q. Let's give it a size of 10. Now, once you remove an item or add an item, you should check, the is full or is empty. So we're just going to add an item to the queue. So it's going to be queue dot insert. Let's insert 10. Queue dot insert 12. Okay, now we know that the first item that we added to the queue was the number 10. So if we remove an item from that queue, that should be number 10. So I'm going to go with 13. Okay, now let's say that I want to remove an item from the queue. It should give me number 10, as is FIFO, first in, first out, but we won't be able to see it. So I'm just going to print it out real quick. Okay, and then we're just going to go queue dot. I think this video, I made it like way too long. Okay, let me just print this out. Sorry guys, I think I took too long explaining things, so I'm just gonna try to end it quick. But you can do a while loop, while the queue is not empty. We actually like implemented those methods. You see? So the queue is just FIFO, first in, first out. I hope this video was not too long for you guys. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. See you guys next time. Thank you.